joining me now, author of Firebrand, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, and Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce. Matt, it seems to me that there's zero interest, actually, in looking back on the past year and evaluating the government response, the costs and the benefits, and having a proper investigation. Everyone just wants to ignore what they did. Nancy Pelosi's got this 9/11 style investigation into what happened on January the 6th. Don't you think the least we could do is actually look into whether the lockdown strategy was effective?
Well, and in conducting that inquiry, Steve, we actually need to rely on the data, as you've done one of the best analyses I've seen of the impact of the virus versus the lockdowns was in Revolver News, where they talked about the consequence in terms of life years. And in that analysis, we see this virus that China unleashed on the world, and then China ends up benefiting greatly from the unilateral disarmament of the American economy in places like New York and California. Now, I'm glad Florida was the alternate example, and when I was talking with Governor Ron DeSantis, he lamented that the problems that the CDC and Fauci have had really erode the trust that exists between the people and any public health officials. Think about it. Any relationship that you're in, if someone is constantly changing the rules, you trust them less. And you see Fauci and the CDC time and again moving the goalposts, and the American people are fed up with it. Dr. Fauci sort of reminds me of every bad weatherman. Frequently wrong, but never in doubt.
That's right, Matt, because, Biden promoted Fauci. And I just want your quick comment on one part of what Tammy just said. We're going to pick it up with Morgan Ortagus in a minute, who is there at the State Department. But the role of the Wuhan Institute, and actually more significantly, I think, the role of our own government potentially in funding the dangerous, risky research. Dr. Fauci's NIAID, funding that research. I know you've been active on that issue as well, Matt Gaetz.
Yes, I wrote a letter to the president asking him to pull funding from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. He did, and then the mainstream media went crazy. They said that, this was, harming the frontline researchers and scientists that would find the next round of cures. And then since that time, we've learned more and more that this virus is very unlikely to have jumped from a pangolin, whatever that is, and way more likely to have come out of the bat virus lab that was in Wuhan where the outbreak occurred. That is so obvious, I can't even believe I have to say it out loud, but Tammy's right, and Morgan will illuminate this in just moments. They couldn't get Trump with the deep state at the FBI or Department of Justice or the State Department, but my gosh, it turns out the most power-hungry people in our government were working at the CDC, and Tammy's exactly right. There is a political realignment going on right now in our country where the number one question isn't even taxes or spending or insurance. The number one question is freedom.
Yeah.
Will you support the right of a family to earn a living, send their kids to school, and live as prosperous Americans? Or do we all have to accept this new state where we're locked down like Chinese Uyghurs?
Do you think Governor Andrew Cuomo should resign? I think the investigation is underway and we should see what it brings us.
Yeah, you wait weeks for a decent comment and then you get something completely useless like that. Matt Gaetz, I want you to respond on the 25th Amendment point, because it seemed to me that you had the Democrats and the media, as I said, almost every 5 minutes they were saying Trump should be taken down by the 25th Amendment. And yet there was never any question of the President Trump's capacity to do his job. You may not like what he was doing with it, but the 25th Amendment was all about capacity to do the job. Seems to me there are far more grounds to worry about that with this president.
Yeah, Donald Trump did embody the virtue that Alexander Hamilton talked about, the need for energy in the executive in our country. I think Joe Biden shows us more what we get when we get Geritol in the executive. Democrats chanted, "This is what democracy looks like." And now that I'm seeing it in action, it sort of looks more like what a gerontocracy looks like. Biden wakes up late, he goes to bed early, kind of stumbling and mumbling his way through the day. And we all know what this is because we see it in our own families and in our own lives. He's clearly not, as a former president would say, he's lost something off of his fastball. And I think the result is that while we get the less is more presidency in Joe Biden, we're expecting less and less of ourselves in the policies that he is supporting and expecting more and more of our government. Bigger checks, more government control, more of a nanny state.
Yeah.
And you talk about Susan Rice and Ron Klain, these are globalist interventionists. It's one of the reasons why you've got the United States again becoming excessively entangled in the Syrian civil war, as if there's something we're trying to win in Syria. But that is the proof that the dynamic you described about the influence of people like Susan Rice is in fact playing out. This is Congressman Matt Gaetz. If you liked that video, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and join us on our daily podcast, Hot Takes with Matt Gaetz, on your favorite podcast listening platform.